Hello and welcome back to the Blue Jacket Banter. My name is Jose Gomez and I'm your host. And I have a very special guest here with me today, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hey guys, my name is Jabe Andrews, and I'm from the Banks County FFA chapter, and I am currently serving as your Area 2 reporter.
There you go. Thank you, Jay, for being on this Zoom here with me today. No, it's a long bits away from here to Banks County.
It
So
is.
kind of want to thank you for that. So kind of to hit the ball rolling, on today's basis of the episode and kind of getting into a little bit of it. How did, you would say, how did your FFA journey start? Or how did that begin?
Yeah, so my FFA journey kind of started, it was very unconventional. It was not what everybody would expect. So I was actually supposed to be put into an intro to business class my freshman year in high school, but they misread my handwriting on my paper, which is actually really funny because if you ask anybody, I have the best handwriting that anyone's seen. So it was actually super funny that they would misread that, but they actually put me in intro to agriculture. And so I go in my first day and like I'm your average athlete. So I was playing three sports. Ag was not my thing, and I really just wanted to survive the class.
Yeah.
And to be completely honest, that's what it was. And then my ag teacher kept asking me to come to an ENR practice, and ENR is like the Environmental Natural Resources
Mhm.
contest. And I told him no, like this isn't my thing. I don't want to, look at animal pelts and skulls and
Yeah.
things like that. And so I kept saying no. And then my parents, I went home and I told them, I was like, yeah, he keeps asking me about this. And they were like, you know what, Jib, like maybe you should just give it a shot. So I went to one practice, and then, I mean, you can probably tell from there, I enjoyed it so much that I kept doing everything else that FFA had to offer, which has led to, leadership positions and being able to go do different things on a state and national level. So that's kind of how my journey started. So it was really, I mean, in my opinion, it's just kind of very unconventional, just
Yeah.
how it came about.
Yeah, that's great. And talking about ENR, aren't y'all going to compete nationally with ENR as well?
Yes. So well, I don't know when we're going to post this, but from today, it was this past weekend, Saturday, we went to ABAC in Tifton and we competed. It was me, Katie Cochran, Logan Ferguson, and then Eli Castongway. And we'd been putting in like so much work, and then we've just kind of came together as a team. So we did win. So we'll go to represent Georgia at nationals again in October.
Yep, there we go. Banks County representing us well every year.
Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, that's great how it started. Kind of sounds like it started by like a small incident in a way.
It
Kind
did.
of like you said, they misread your handwriting.
Mhm.
But that's definitely a great way to start off your FFA journey. And kind of leading into today's topic on the episode. You recently were the national. You recently got second place at nationals with prepared public speaking. So kind of what like roll you into that competition? Like what drew you to it?
So I think what drew me to public speaking was I always knew that I wanted to do like a speaking event. Like after I did, because when I started, I did ENR. That was my first contest, and then I did wildlife and then forestry. So like all of the team contests and all of these like environmental contests. But I kept seeing like people doing or members doing speaking events, and so I tried Ag Ed. So Ag Ed was my freshman year contest, and I went to state in Ag Ed as a freshman, and surprisingly, I made it to the Final Four. And it was me and three other seniors, and I somehow won. So
Yeah.
Ag Ed was kind of like a eye-opening experience for me because I kind of saw like, hey, I can be competitive in speaking events, and it's also something that I really love doing. So my at the end of my junior year, I say junior, my freshman year, I was competing on a junior level. So at my last contest that I did on a junior level was junior prepared public speaking, and that would have been my freshman year in high school. And I got last in my room at sub area. So I came home thinking I was the worst speaker in area two, which I guess I technically was. Um, but I came back and I had gotten last in my room at sub area. And so coming back my sophomore year, I was just like so determined to do good. So that's kind of how like my journey with senior prepared started was just I failed really badly
Yeah.
like when I competed as a junior. So I came back and wanted to do a lot better. And there's a lot of things that I learned from my junior time, like competing as a junior, that I wanted to change competing as a senior.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. They kind of not letting those setbacks define you, letting them kind of push you forward.
Hmm.
Yeah, definitely. From That's kind of funny thinking about it now, getting last from
Yeah.
some area and then now winning nationals. Um, or not getting second place at nationals and being able to compete on that national level.
Mhm.
And kind of on the topic of your speech as well, what was the topic of your speech and why did you choose that topic?
Yeah, so I think I'll just kind of tell you. So my freshman year when I did junior, my topic was the right to repair, and it's like an
Mhm.
agriculture mechanics topic, and it's a very very important topic. And I think that if you're passionate about mechanics or something around that, that you should use that topic. It's very big in agriculture right now. But my topic for last year, it changed at every level because I'm very bad about not settling down on one idea. And I'm also like, I just change my mind all the time. So at area, it was about the redwood forest specifically and like what factors are affecting them. And then when I went to state, I thought I needed to broaden it a little bit. So I talked about the threats to forests in Georgia, especially in the southeast. And then on a national level, I thought I needed to broaden it some more. So I just talked about the misconceptions in the forestry industry across America and kind of the challenges that that presents to the industry, and then what we can do and what we need to do to keep, one of the largest industries in America thriving. Um, I think the biggest separation from my right to repair speech to the forestry misconception speech is just the passion that went into it.
Mhm.
So I think that's kind of what separated them and also helped me progress through the contest was just
Mhm.
finding something that I genuinely cared about. Like I care about ag mechanics, but it's
Yeah,
not something like I'm not
yeah,
saying I hate ag mechanics because that's
yeah,
amazing and some people love to do that, but it's just
yeah,
not my thing. So
yeah.
if I can say anything, I just encourage people to find a speech that you can relate to or a speech that
Mhm.
you truly care about what you're saying.
Mhm. Yeah, like something that's easy to talk about, something that kind of flows off the tongue.
Exactly.
Definitely. That speech. Yeah, I actually got a chance to hear Jabe's speech at National Convention, and I can tell you it was the best thing I've ever heard. But yeah, definitely. I really enjoy your speech topic and how you're talking about like progressing through the levels of saying your speech. What would you say kind of changed at each level from area to state to competing at nationals?
Yes. So every level was different. But I think one thing that was the same throughout the whole process was just like the fear of failing.
Mhm.
So that's like, so I'm a perfectionist and I don't like owning up to that because I think in our like world, being a perfectionist is not something you want to be.
Mhm.
But I always go to win. I always like, try to do the
Mhm.
best that I can do. And so at every level, at area, at state, and at nationals, there was still that same pressure. Like I don't ever think the pressure changed. I think I still had it on
Mhm.
myself at each level, but I think that the room that I was in changed. If that makes sense, and I'll explain. So like on an area level, it was my advisor were there to support me, and my
Mhm.
chapter was, and then on a state level, it was my chapter, my friends, my advisors, and a few other people that had put in some information to help me. And then on national level, like I felt so like blessed to have the amount of people there supporting me. Like my family drove, I think it's like 10 and a half hours just to watch me, and this is the thing that I thought
Mhm.
was awesome. They didn't even know if I was going to make top four. Like I could have got
Mhm.
out first round, but they were still driving up there. And
Mhm.
I had my advisors, I had my chapter members, but above that, I had the Georgia delegates, and you were one of
Yeah.
them. Um, I'm so glad that I took the opportunity or was given the opportunity to be a delegate and compete because I don't think, and I've thought about this since October, I don't
Mhm.
think I would have made it as far as I did without everybody like hyping me up and being there to like through each round because at
Mhm.
nationals it was the prelims, the semifinals, and the finals, and
Mhm.
I had to make it through all of them to, or I had to
Mhm.
make it through two to get to the finals, and
Yeah.
it was just awesome to have everybody there. But I guess to be a little bit more specific, area was more about could you complete your speech, and I
Mhm.
know that sounds horrible to say, but
Yeah.
like area is very much like can you give your speech and do you at least understand it? And
Mhm.
then state is a different ball game because those are some of the best speakers that I have ever heard. Jose, you were one of them. Like I, I remember the first time I think I met you was competing against you at state,
Yeah, I
and
think it
like
was.
y'all were everybody was so good, and so I think if I had to give you or give like people listening just one piece of advice for state area, just know your speech and know your topic.
Mhm.
State, if you fail, get back up because
Yeah.
this is the first time I think I've told anybody this. The first room that I went into at state, I blanked and my speech left me. Like, and I extemporaneous to the rest of the thing. Is that even a word? Extemporaneous?
Hey,
Can
we
we
can
make
make it a
we
word.
can make it what okay.
Yeah.
So I extemporaneous my speech from like the intro on, and I had no clue what I was saying. And I got down to the end and they asked me my questions and I thought I did okay, but I get out of the room and I go up to Mr. Jackson and I was like, there is no way I'm making it to the finals. I was like, they were looking at my manuscript and looking at me like, what is this guy talking about? Well, one of the judges, once they had announced the final four, he came up to me and he was one in the room and he goes, I know, he said, we knew you deviated from your manuscript. He said, but that just showed that you knew your topic. That did not
Mhm.
show that you forgot your speech. Like
Mhm.
it was not a deviation in like he doesn't know what he's saying. It's a
Yeah.
deviation in like he knows his topic so much that he can give the speech. So
Mhm.
I then progressed to the finals and so on and so forth. But
Yeah.
I guess my thing for state is you're going to be nervous, you're going to make a mistake, you're gonna blank, you're gonna stutter, you're gonna say something wrong, but
Mhm.
keep going because if you sit there and you go, I'm done. I just made a mistake and
Yeah.
you give up, they're going to notice that. But they're like, one
Mhm.
of the things I wrote on my comment card was you showed resilience. And I think that's one thing you have to have at state and really all the levels for public speaking. It's just making sure that you show resilience and making sure that if you fail, you get back up. And then I know I'm talking a lot. I'm so sorry.
No, you're all good.
On a national level, so area, know your speech, state, show resilience. And then nationally, and this kind of goes with the title of the contest, be prepared. So
Yeah.
this is prepared public speaking. So reach out to as many people as you need to get your advisor to reach out to as many people. I cannot count the amount of times I met with people, whether it was at UGA or whether it was at in Atlanta meeting with Tyler Harper, the ag commissioner, or whether it was meeting with um, Georgia FFA's executive secretary, Mr. Ben Lastly. Like
Yeah.
he he was so much help, and he met well, at the same time it was with Miss Whitworth. They both met with me, and like just having their input um, helped a lot. So just meet with different people and be prepared because I I said a lot of people want to say like nothing will prepare you for a national event. I disagree with that. I think that
Mhm.
you can put in so much work beforehand
Mhm.
that you will be ready. Because when I went into
Yeah.
those rooms, I felt prepared to give my speech to
Mhm.
anyone, and like even when y'all were asking me questions. It was all the delegates, and I think it was like
Yeah.
all 30 something of us.
Yeah.
Y'all were all just throwing questions at me. And it was so fun for me because I wasn't nervous what y'all were going to ask me. I didn't care what you asked me because I was ready to show y'all what I knew. So
Yeah.
I guess my biggest thing is know your speech, show resilience, and then, be prepared for what's coming because you're going to have to answer questions and give a speech.
Yep, there we go. That's definitely great advice. Thank you, Jabe.
Yeah.
For anyone who's listening, kind of progressing through that ladder. Kind of had the same thing with competing with prepared. My very first year competing in prepared, I thought going in, I was like, I don't know. It just is what it is, kind of walking through it.
Mhm.
And I ended up getting third. So, me and second place were 3 points apart from,
Yeah.
seeing how that was. So that was kind of like, it was a little tough, but I mean, you always had next year. And then that following year, or I started off with senior prepared. I didn't start off with junior prepared. I did discussion meet my junior year, and I made it to the second round, but quite didn't make it to state. And I've been told that I'm not a discussion meet person. I'm a prepared public
Yep.
speaking person. And that was just kind of funny. When Miss Schwing told me that. I remember her telling me that. But kind of the same thing. My second year going into prepared, I ended up winning area and going to state. And kind of how you said those moments that you're gonna have, you're gonna blank, you're gonna forget a spot in your speech, and you're just gonna have those moments. That moment happened to me at state convention. When we were competing, or we were in the finals round,
Yeah.
and I was on stage, had the little mic and all that good stuff. And then they asked me the title of my speech, and my mind just blanks, and I'm like
Yeah.
trying to scavenge what I can for it. And if you like go back and look at it, it's like I always go back and look at it. It's like the most embarrassing thing I've ever done.
I
'Cause
hate
it's like,
those YouTube videos. Like,
yes,
the amount of times I've wanted them to take that down because I just don't like watching myself.
no, it's like you just go back and watch yourself, and you're just like, what was
Mhm.
I doing?
Yeah.
But no, I forgot the title of my speech, and I was like, I was trying to like think of it. I was like, the hidden battle for the table, and then it was something along those lines. But like you said, you just have to show resilience in those moments, and just making sure you know your topics well, because I know it's kind of like I guess you could say a hot take, but you kind of win this competition in your questions. I'd
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of,
It's not a
yeah,
hot take.
yeah,
That's the truth. I think well, I think I think at every level, to be completely
yeah,
honest, I think if because everybody, for the most part, is going to give a speech, and there's different ways to give a speech, but especially on, like, a national level and or even a state or national level, it comes down to, do you understand your topic and do you have
yeah.
a passion for your topic?
Hmm.
And that's what the judges have told me most of the time, so I do agree. I think if you're gonna do prepared public speaking, be ready to answer questions about anything related to your topic.
Yeah. Yep, there you go. Like just being able to know about it, kind of like the knowledge that you had on your topic was like mind blowing. Because whatever question that we just threw at you, you immediately had an answer for it. It was like you were
Yeah,
eager for those questions, wanted us to ask them.
yeah,
Kind of like you said earlier, just being able to show your knowledge on that topic that you researched and had so much time put in for. That was just a really cool thing to see, and just being to see how well prepared somebody was. Um,
yeah,
but how kind of um, going back into competing at nationals again? I know we're talking a lot about nationals. What was it like?
yeah.
What was it like stepping on that national stage? Like, how did that moment feel?
So, are you talking about, like, to compete or, like, on the stage when they were calling it out? Like, there's because those are
We can do both, like being able to compete
okay,
and then moving it to
yeah.
being on
So
the stage.
yeah, so competing, my first round, so they put these, like, whiteboards outside, and they have everybody that's in your room competing, and they write their names on there, and then they circle the 2 that advance. So my first round, I went in, I gave my speech, and I felt really good, and so I was confident, but I think the confidence comes with practice. So I because that's one thing that I think a lot of the speakers, because I was talking to them and they were saying like, "Oh, I wish I would have had more time to practice," or I don't feel good because, I didn't know my topic as well as I should have." And nothing against them, and I'm not trying to, you know, shun them for anything,
Yeah.
but that's also your responsibility. You are representing
Mhm.
your state, so you should be prepared for your speech. And so my first round, I felt really good. They came out, they circled my name and another kid's name, or student's name. Um, students. We cannot call them kids.
Yeah.
If
Yep.
you're a delegate, you understand that. I've been working on that. So
Yeah. You're good.
to continue, that was a completely random thought. To continue, he did a speech about like this is also a random thought, but you might find this interesting.
Yeah.
He did a speech on like how the blood, like crab blood, can like help with vaccines and medicines and stuff like that in like the agricultural field. And I was like, that's awesome. So there's just, and I think that's another thing, seeing the different topics there.
Mhm.
Like, you know, the girl from Montana who I met, Claire, she is a fantastic public speaker and she was speaking on like rangelands and things that are very specific to Montana and where she's from.
Mhm.
Whereas I was speaking about forestry because Georgia's the number one forestry state
Yeah.
in the nation. Um, and so it's just super cool to see the different topics.
Mhm.
But I advanced from the first round to the top 16, which would be the semifinals, and I was put in a room with some of the like it was just so intimidating because once again I was the underdog. Like with Ag Ed, there was like three seniors and I was a freshman. I would be a junior at the time competing, but I won
Mhm.
this as a sophomore.
Yeah.
These were all freshmen in college. Like I
Yeah.
had one guy up there talking about how he had to take a college exam the next week, and I was like, I'm still in high school. Like it
Yeah.
was terrifying, but they were so like so good that a lot of them were also like state officers or you know area officers, things like that, or district. Some of them states differ how they um, do officers like that, but it was just, to be completely honest, it was just nerve wracking because you're sitting in a room with the top
Mhm.
16. You know that four are going
Mhm.
to advance, but you know that these are, you know, the across the state, these are the
Yeah.
people that the state chose to send.
Mhm.
Um, so I competed in the semifinals round. I felt good about that speech too. Like I'll be completely honest, I gave every speech that I gave at nationals, I felt good about. There wasn't one that I
Mhm.
felt bad about. And I think that goes back to what I said again, and I hate to say the same thing, but confidence, and that confidence comes with
Mhm.
practice. And so they announced the final four at the um, banquet that they have. They do like a
Mhm.
banquet, and this is funny. I'll tell you this. So they had us seated really, really weird, and they started calling us up, and you know the 8 people are gold emblem and are
Mhm.
gold, and then of the 8 gold, 4 would then become your finalist. So we're standing in line and they're calling out bronze and silver and gold. I'm trying to count to see if I'm in the bottom 8 because I'm at the back of the line, and I got so nervous because somebody came in the door and they were like trying to stand right there with us, and I didn't realize that they weren't a competitor, and I thought, "Oh goodness, this
And
that's
you're
8
counting
behind,"
them?
because I was in front and I thought that there's 8 people behind me, and I said, "Great, I'm silver." Like I was like, "This is over. I'm done." And so the other girl that just came walked in the door, she goes and sits back down, and I said, "Okay, okay, so there's 8 of us, right?" And then
Yeah.
eventually I make it on stage for gold emblem, and then he starts calling it out, and he drug it out so long. Like that is the longest thing I think I've ever waited. He was like, "So do y'all want to know?" And we're all just like, "Yeah, just tell us." And he's like, "Are you sure you want to know?" And I'm like, "Just
Oh my
please tell."
gosh.
And so to be completely honest, I couldn't even tell you if I was first or last name called. Like that whole moment is just a complete blur. But I know that I was called for finals, and then later I gave my final speech. I was the first person to give my speech, which is really odd because at state I was last my first round. I was last my finals round.
Mhm.
My first round at nationals, I was last. And my second round at nationals, I was last. But for finals, I was first. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, so I either have to
Yeah.
set the bar or, just go in there or I just went in there and did what I knew how to do. Um,
Mhm.
and then similar to my other rounds, like I came out and I truly did feel good about it.
Mhm.
But I think, like I told my advisor as soon as I came out of the door because he was not allowed to be in the room. Like I refused to
Yeah.
let my advisor watch me give my speech. Um, it's so weird. Like I've given it to him 1,000 times. It felt like, but I
Mhm.
just didn't want him in the room. Um, so I go out of the door. He is immediately right there, and he was like, "Well, how did it go?" And like I'm just grinning from ear to ear because like
Yeah.
I thought it did great, and
Mhm.
and that and like in a sense I did, but he goes, "Well, how do you feel?" And I said, "I felt like I did the best that I could." And I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing you have to tell yourself with prepared public speaking is if you go out there and you do the best that you can do and you
Mhm.
lay it all out on the stage, you just leave it there, then you have to be okay with your performance because especially at the national level, like I'm I'm just glad that I could even make it that far. So I felt good, and so that's kind of how the rounds progressed at nationals. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
how it happened.
Yeah, that's great. Being able to kind of see that representation from round to round. And kind of funny how you were going in last with each round and ended up going
Yeah,
first in that finals round. But yes, I remember watching your speech in the semifinals, and it was like me and Ramai were blown away. Like seeing like even I was just blown away. Like being able to see like how you spoke from at the state level at the state contest and seeing you at nationals. Like it was just so astonishing being able to see that and just being able to see like what a talented and great speaker that you are because I know you hear that all the time, but you really are, Jabe.
thank you.
Um, you're welcome. But yes, definitely kind of seeing that representation when how it felt going through those rounds. And kind of on the same boat of kind of how you felt kind of how did you feel walking up on that national stage like when you were about to receive your award?
So this is what nobody prepares you for. You can prepare for your event, but getting up there and not knowing your placement is the most terrifying thing I think I've ever like. I like state, they do it too.
Mhm.
But state for some reason was not bad at all. Like I don't know
Mhm.
why. I I don't know why state was not bad. Like I was so unfazed at state. But
Yeah.
at nationals, I get up there and like I am praying that they just don't call my name. Like, every other time you're like, please call my name.
Yeah.
No, you do not want them to call your name. So they're going down the line, and I know, like, all the delegates will relate to this. Like, if you win, we call the dogs. And I was just
Oh
like
yeah.
praying I could win, praying y'all could all cheer for me. And I knew my family was there. I knew my friends were on. Like, I had friends like watching the live stream who videoed their reaction because they thought like I was going to win, and they were like, they wanted to show me. So they call forth, and he was a fantastic speaker from Indiana. And then, my friends' videos, they're like, okay, top three, top three. Like everybody was like freaking out. And then they called three. And she is a great speaker. She is from, I believe, Iowa. And then I get down to the final two, and that is when like my heart sank because I mean, it it was so close. I mean, if I would have got fourth, I could have said, like I made it to top four. Like
Yeah.
there was just some really good speakers. And then when I got to three, like I would have been okay. I would have been fine. But getting top two, like getting to two, is just you don't want that. You just really don't. I'll be completely honest.
Yeah.
Um, and so they get the two and they go, and then your first runner up, they call me, and this is the most embarrassing thing. And I've watched it back like 1,000 times. I didn't hear my name. I thought that they said someone else's name and I didn't know her name. So I'm standing there waiting for her to step forward, thinking I'm the national champion. And I'm just like in awe. And then Mr. Jackson, who's my advisor, is behind me and he goes, step forward. And I said, okay. So I step forward, freaking out, like, what's going on? And then Jack brings me my second place little pin in the box. And I was like, what's going on? Like they didn't call my name. And then they call her and I'm just like, wow. So I get off the stage and just kind of went and found a corner to be completely honest because it and I know that sounds horrible because you're supposed to be able to like control yourself and be like proud of what you did and represent your state and X, Y, and Z. But seriously, nobody prepares you for putting in 5 months of work, 6 months of work all for that to come down to getting second. Like it's hard to explain because I know how I sound. Like it sounds really bad because I know anybody would be thrilled to go. And you should be like going to nationals is a fantastic thing, but you have to understand like it comes back to that idea that I have like I'm a perfectionist and if
Yeah.
I don't win, I lost. Um and that still sounds really bad, but please don't take that like the wrong way. I'm so proud that I could represent Georgia, but like getting second was just really, really hard because
Mm,
I had so many people supporting me. I was so close. Um, but now looking back, she, I don't remember her name. I know she's from Wisconsin
mm,
because I will never forget that. Like I know it's just one of those things. Um, but she deserved it. She did a
mm,
phenomenal job. I mean, like I watched the state speeches back that night in my room, and
mm.
I remember um, it was all y'all, all the state officers, the state officers were in the room, and y'all were like, Jabe, just like stop watching it. And I was
Yeah.
like, you don't understand. Like I have to. And I got to hers, and I had peace with what happened because
Mm,
she knocked that speech out of the water. And it was
mm,
about farmer suicide, and that is a huge issue. And one thing that she did that separated her from me was she pulled in so much emotion. Mine
mm,
was it had emotion, but it was more factual, and hers
mm,
was just very emotional.
mhm.
Um, and she did a phenomenal job. So being on stage to answer your question directly, most nerve wracking thing you'll ever have, like will ever do. Um,
Yeah.
when they start calling it backwards, you just want to walk off the stage. You're just
Yeah.
like, just get me off of this, like, because that's my knees were about to break. Like I just was about to, like, I was so done. And then they start calling it off, and then when they call me for second, that's the most embarrassing moment of my life so far. Thinking that I won. There's a picture that Georgia FFA posted. If anybody wants to go find it, you can because my mouth is like straight open. I'm like I look so happy because I thought I won, and then I realized I didn't. But it's okay. We're still we're still moving on.
Yeah, there we go. Definitely, great description of kind of the way you felt throughout, and a little funny story as well. With being at nationals. Definitely, I remember we were in that room. You were watching that speech. You were like, "James, just stop watching it. You're
Yep.
fine." Just but I mean, it all worked out in the end, and
Yeah.
it's all God's plan.
Exactly.
So yeah. So, kind of going through it, how do you see prepared public speaking helping FFA members within agriculture?
It. I think that prepared public speaking. I'm very biased, but I think you know where I'm going to go with this. I think
Yeah,
prepared public speaking is one of the more beneficial contests that we offer for just a variety of reasons. Like I'll give you an example. I competed in ENR, the Environmental Natural Resources contest. I think that that contest prepares people who want to go be an environmentalist or wants to go, be a DNR agent or do different things like that. That prepares them for that field. But I think prepared public speaking prepares anybody, whether you
yeah,
want to go be a DNR agent, you're going to have to communicate with people. Whether you want to go be, like for me, I'm thinking about being like an environmental attorney. I need to know how to talk to people. Or whether you want to go be an ag teacher, you're going to have to learn to talk to people. So, doing prepared public speaking, I think, first of all, just builds your communication skills and just being able to communicate with people. It's taught me the art of speaking clearly and saying what needs to be said, and not kind of resorting to like over explaining things. Because especially with your questions, you've got to be direct. You have to answer the question, and you have to make it make sense. And
mhm,
before I did prepared public speaking, I would be really bad about just yapping the whole time in my
yeah.
questions, or and not really focusing on like what the true answer is. And so it's kind of taught me how to speak effectively and speak in a clear way.
What advice would you give to a FFA member that is interested in competing in prepared public speaking for the first time?
There's a lot of different things that I would say, and because I'm not going to say them all because there's just so many. But I
Yeah.
think I kind of was thinking about it in my head. There's about three that I would give you. The first one is, and I've said it before during this meeting, but I'll say it again because it's really important to kind of get in your head and then kind of think about it. Make sure that you pick a topic that you enjoy. The difference between my junior prepared speech that got me last and my senior prepared speech that got me second in the nation was because I genuinely cared about what I was saying. I love ag mechanics as a class. Do
Yeah.
I know the ins and outs of the right to repair? No. I could not tell you anything about it. Now, I can tell you pretty much anything you want to know about misconceptions in forestry, what we're looking at, the factors that are applying to that, what we can do to stop
Mhm.
that, because that's something that I genuinely care about. And that's something I could wrap my head around. So, biggest thing is when you're choosing your topic, don't choose a topic because you saw it 2 or 3 years ago in the Final Four. Don't choose a topic because your advisor told you to choose that topic. Because I know that, like, I've talked to a lot of students, and I understand if your advisor comes to you and says you're going to talk about animal production, then
Mhm.
you kind of have to talk about animal production. But I would encourage you to say, "Hey, are you okay if I talk about, X or Y or Z or whatever it is? Talk about something different that you feel confident speaking on." Because learning a 6 to 8 minute speech is not fun. It's not
Mhm.
fun. Nobody wants to do it. But if you can learn it on something that's enjoyable, then it makes that so much easier. So, first tip, when it comes to choosing your topic, choose something that you know is going to be something that you can continuously enjoy. Because, I mean,
Mhm.
the hope is to advance throughout all the levels. So, that's my first tip is choose your speech topic wisely. My second tip is a little bit different, but I think it's something to know. There is, and you know this, there is an FFA voice, and everybody
Mhm.
knows it.
Yep.
Everybody loves the FFA voice, but I will say this, and this is a hot take. Jabe Andrews does not like the FFA voice. Jabe Andrews does not. And I know that that's going to make a lot of people angry, but I do not like that because I don't think it allows for enough passion or difference to show. And I do not think that I would have advanced as far as I did if I would have stuck to the FFA voice. I think you need to be professional in how you speak, and I think you need to speak clearly. But I don't think that mimicking other people or mimicking the so called FFA voice is what you need to do to win. With that same idea, watch the past state finalist, watch the past national finalist, watch podcasts, watch speakers, watch people who do phenomenal in public speaking. Like I watched before my national contest, I could count. It would take me a long time to count how many times that I watched Coy Davidson. He's from Oklahoma and he's a state officer and he won the year prior, so he won a year back and he is just a great public speaker. And I remember trying to mimic how he spoke, and it did not sound natural for me. If anything, it made me a worse speaker. And I think that
Mhm.
just goes back to what I was saying is you have to find how you speak and you have to speak like that because the judges
Mhm.
will know if you're trying to use the FFA voice or if you're trying to mimic someone else because it just
Mhm.
doesn't sound natural. So
Yeah.
my second tip to you would be, look at resources, look at past national winners, look at past state winners, look at other states' competitions, but don't think that if you don't speak like that, then you won't be successful. And
Mhm.
then my last tip for public speaking is definitely going to have to just go back to like find your resources and use them. So my speech was mostly concerned with different details from people. It was Darcy Tripod, who's a coastal forester with the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. It was Ethan Bertram, who's a student at ABAC, who's going to be a forester. It was Dr. Furman, a professor at the Warnell School of Forestry and Natural Resources. So there was a bunch of people that I had comments from or interviews with. And I do think that when it comes down to giving your speech, it has to be more than just facts. It can't
Mhm.
just be, something that I can just look up on Google. It has to be
Mhm.
something that you went out, you took the initiative to go get information. I think along that same idea,
Mm,
I tried to make my references more than just Google searches because
mm,
I think, pro tip, wink, wink, the judges really, really like when you can have like books, textbooks, or magazines, or podcasts, or YouTube videos, like audio videos, like different things other than just I searched up in Google what is misconceptions with the forestry industry, because anybody can do that, but not everybody's going to take the time to read a book. I read two whole books. Each, I think one of them was like 500 and something pages. The other one was closer to like 700. I read those books front to back and used quotes in that, included that in my references. That alone shows a difference between, on an area level, state level, and a national level, who's willing to put in the work. So, my three big tips, first of all, it's just going to be making sure that you choose a topic that you feel passionate about. Second
mm,
one is make sure you speak the way that you speak, to make sure that you're not sounding like someone else. And then the last thing has just got to be to use your resources that you have and make sure you're using a variety
mm.
of resources.
Yep. There we go. Great advice. I definitely agree with you with that. Being able to choose a topic that you're easily able to talk about, something that rolls off the tongue, kind of how you were saying. And once you get to those competitions, you'll see how everybody has a different topic. I was going into area, and my friend Alyssa Knight from the Berrien County FFA chapter, her speech was over bovine production. Her speech was titled "The Big Bad Bovine" because it was over their methane production, and it was something that she was easily able to talk about. And then my friend Cora Cruz, her topic was over the production of Brahman cattle, and that's something easy for her to talk about because she grew up on a Brahman farm, or she lives on one, and has plays part in that production. And even when you get to the state level, I remember the finalist, yours was over those yours was over forestry. I remember Laney's was over the farm bill.
Yeah.
Um, I remember that. And then I can't remember the other girl's name, but I remember
She
hers was
was,
over mental health and ag.
yeah, it was mental health. And
Yeah.
I don't remember her name either. Sorry.
Mm-mm. And then mine was over labor
Yeah.
shortages. So it's kind of just something like it doesn't even have to pertain to you, but something that's in your community or something that's easy to talk about where you
Yeah.
can get resources from or something that you're passionate about. Like for example, in Ware County, we have a ton of labor issues in the agricultural workforce. So that was just something easy for me to talk about, whether it might not be as easy for somebody who, I mean, in a different spot of Georgia. But definitely being able to choose a topic that you're able to be passionate about. Not using the FFA voice like you said. Um, I will say I am guilty of it sometimes.
Well, here,
But
this is a disclaimer. The
yeah.
FFA voice is a really good tool to have because there
Mhm,
is so many different times that you need to use that.
mhm.
But personally, I don't think public speaking is the time to
Yeah,
use it because I think it doesn't make you sound like yourself, and it
yeah.
makes you sound in a way that's hard for judges to really interact with your, like, as
Mhm,
whether you believe it or not, the judges are interacting with you while you're giving your speech. They want to enjoy what you're saying. And if you get up there and you're monotone and you're very choppy with how you're saying your speech, that doesn't make it easy on them to sit there for 8 minutes and listen to you. So I do think the FFA voice is valuable to have, and I think it's something that we need to use for certain occasions, but I don't think it's something that I would implement if I was doing this contest again.
yeah. Yeah, definitely agree with that. Valuable in certain situations. I will say I try not to use it. That's what my advisor told me. She said, when we were talking about it, she said, "Well, then you're not using the FFA voice when you're saying your speech." I was like, "Yes, ma'am." Because she was like, she told me it kind of just makes you blend in with everybody else if
Mhm.
they're all saying it
Exactly.
at the same time. And I mean, everybody sounds different. Everybody's going to say a speech different. So just make sure that you're saying it in the way that you're most comfortable in.
Exactly.
Um, and kind of like you agree, doing all of your research, like knowing your topic in and out. in betweens, everything, doing as much research as you can, and meeting with actual people like Jay mentioned. You can have a speech with just a ton of facts and figures, but if you don't really have like a story there, a personal story, you're just throwing facts and figures at a judge, and you're not really kind of drawing them in with a story. Um, so I know Jay, he mentioned Ethan Bertram was here at ABAC, and just kind of finding a story to go along, so you're not just kind of throwing just straight facts and figures at those judges. But definitely great advice, Jay. Great advice for those FFA members wanting to go and prepare public speaking. Um, so kind of going like kind of looking at the speeches, what would you say kind of separates a normal speech from that national level speech, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Um, it's a hard question to answer because it's very different for every state. So I believe that Georgia FFA has some of the best speakers in the nation. I think we could have sent our final four and we would have placed top 10. You know what I'm saying? Like I think that the quality of speakers that we have is just phenomenal. And so I think but I think to answer your question, what's kind of the difference between a mediocre speech and then, you know, and I hate saying that like a national like runner up speech because like my speech was not as good as everyone makes it seem, guys. Um, but to the difference between like a national speech and a, just an everyday speech, I think it comes down. I really like doing threes, so just go with me. The first thing, you have to have passion. Your speech cannot just be, a speech. It has to be something that the judges can look at you and say, this kid or this student truly does care about what they're talking about. And so that's the number one, just it has to have passion. The second thing, it truly comes down to knowing that rubric. And I know that sounds bad, but it is a contest. And in any contest or any job application or anything you do in your life, you need to know what they're expecting and the requirements of that. And so knowing the rubric helps a lot because one thing that I was really bad about was moving too much. I would pace because that was the only way that I could keep my nerves calm. And so on the rubric, they have, a box on there for pace or movement or something along those lines. And knowing that that was on the rubric, I had to fix that. So I think this what separates, a mediocre speech from a national speech is, do you know that rubric? Do you know what they're looking for? Because if you're just standing still, there goes 20, 40 points
Mhm.
for pace. And the last thing I think that separates it is just truly the speaker itself. Because anybody, I believe this is true, and nobody's going to convince me otherwise. Anybody can be can do well in public speaking. Anybody can. Like, I don't care if it's a student who's never done prepared public speaking or someone who's scared to do it or not. They all that they need to do is find confidence. That confidence comes from preparing and prepping and studying. I think that confidence also comes from having resources, like getting that information from people. And I think the biggest thing that separates those speeches, it truly just comes down to the speaker themselves. Because my state speech to my national speech was very different. Like, you can watch the video from my final round at state to my final round at nationals and tell there's a very big difference. But I think that difference comes down to just the work that I put in. Because the speeches are relatively the same speech. Like, they're very, very close in nature. There's nothing really that differed. But like we said earlier, those questions matter too. So preparing and being confident in those answers, that's what it comes down to. So truly, the speaker itself is what defines the speech, because I could have gave my speech to anybody. I could have sent them my manuscript and let them give my speech. like I could have took someone else's speech and gave a speech. It does the speech is not what defines the speech itself. It's the
Mhm.
speaker and how they present that speech that defines it. And that's true in anything. So that's what I would say is the difference between like, an everyday speech and then one that would move on to nationals.
Yep. Well, there we go. So great depiction of it. Um, yeah, kind of like you said, I can get like you can give your speech to anyone and they can say it in a way, but like you said, it just depends on the speaker of how well that's presented.
Yep.
Definitely a great depiction of it. So kind of nearing the end of today's episode, what would you say kind of this whole experience hot how let me restart. How would you say like this whole experience taught you something? Like what did you gain from this whole experience?
I gained a lot. So I think the obvious answer is I gained public speaking skills. I gained communication skills. I became more of a confident speaker. But some of the answers that most people wouldn't know is like I gained a lot of friends through this. Just competing, just like simply competing in this contest. I now am friends with Annie Schneider. She's from Oklahoma. I've got Claire Mernon. She's the Montana FFA state president. Like just people that I competed against that are now good friends with me. Like I remember um, I was in the semifinals room with Annie, and like we were both pacing the room back and forth, like so nervous. And I walked up to her and I was like, "Hey, like you're gonna do good, right?" And
Yeah.
she, like, we both kind of calmed each other down. And so I think just those relations with competitors, and then on another kind of different angle of like the relations that I made, I now have resources with people that helped me with this contest that I would not have had if I didn't compete in prepared public
Mhm.
speaking. I have people at UGA, I have people in Atlanta, I have people online that I can now reach out to and ask
Mhm.
for letters of recommendation or simply just advice on certain things. So that is also kind of a big factor of what I've gained from this contest. So but then at the same time, it taught me life lesson. Like it taught me that, and this is this is just something I've learned from competing in this event and losing this event is that God always has a plan for you. And so like when I went to apply to be a delegate, I was very hesitant because I was like, what if I go up there and I don't have time to focus on my contest or whatever. But like God knew that that's something that I needed to do. He knew I needed that family that week of just a bunch of students who majority of like y'all probably didn't know me too well before I was a delegate, but like that whole week, just everybody was there for me, and it was just something I just needed it more than I realized. And now y'all are like some of my best friends now,
Yeah.
so it's just that was something else that I kind of gained. I gained more than just more friends. I gained like a mini family with FFA. It's
Mhm.
just all from being a delegate and competing. And then I think the last thing I'll say is I taught myself that losing is okay. So,
Mhm.
like, I'm very competitive. I'm probably the most competitive person that I know, and it's very and anyone else who is competitive understands that you go to win and you go for the medal and you go, to represent your state, and you get up there and you get second, and it's like there's no way to simply look at yourself and say, "Wow, I'm proud of myself. I just got second in the nation."
Yeah.
But I've slowly learned from this contest that getting this far was not easy. So I need to look back and be proud of what I did and thank God for getting me this far, because it it was a challenge just to get to nationals. And
Mhm.
then, so I think there's a bunch of different things that I have
Yeah.
learned or gained from competing in this, but the biggest takeaway is that, losing is not always defined as a number or a placement. Like it's in my brain, it was more of a mentality because if
Mhm.
I could have got 30th, and that would have still been as equal of losing as I would have gotten second.
Mhm.
But this contest has taught me kind of to accept that and to just kind of reflect on truly how far that I came. So
Yes, definitely. Great things that you've gained from it. Whether it was those relationships, whether it was other FFA members or industry professionals and those industry leaders, whether it was Mr. Leslie, Miss Whitworth, or
yeah,
Tyler Harper,
hmm,
definitely all those great relationships that you gain along the way to compete at the national level and even on the state level as well. And as well as the whole Georgia delegate body, we were all there for you in that moment, and we were just cheering you on every step of the way. So it was just nice being able to see and great being able to see somebody from Georgia represent us so well as a delegate and as well as a national competitor. But definitely great things that you've learned along the way. And kind of like you said, sometimes you have to accept to fail sometimes, and kind of leads me back to something that I kind of mention all the time. Kind of like not letting those the setbacks define you, letting them push you forward. Um,
exactly.
I mean, there's a quote. I mean, we hear it all the time. You have to fail to learn.
Mhm.
I really don't like that quote because I don't like to fail.
Oh,
Um, no, and it's like the first time I want to do it right. Like I don't want to do it again and again and again, but that's how you learn.
exactly.
But definitely great things that you've learned. And thank you, Jay.
Of course.
So, thank you for watching today's episode or watching or listening to today's episode of the Blue Jacket Banner. So just make sure to follow us on all of our social medias to stay up to date. And thank you for watching.